Okay, good morning, everybody. I hope you all are doing well. So today we're going to speak about the PIka case study. So I want to give you some background and make sure that you are all set to do an amazing job on this project. Okay, so let me share my screen with you. Let me pull up the case study and let's get going. Extra bonus, I'm going to show you a little cheat that I did to help the whole process along. So stay tuned. Okay, so this is the PIka case study. So when you get here, the first thing I think really the first thing you should do is watch this video right here, right? Just click play and it takes only a few minutes. And that's going to give you a pretty good background on the PIka. Of course, the PIka are these little mammals that live in the mountains. In the United States, they live in Colorado. And that'll give you a background. Then what you're going to do is click on this and open up. I'm going to click on this little picture icon so I can bring it up and we can talk about it, okay? So again, this is the same, more background information. This will be probably a little duplicative of what the video is about. And then you wanna fill in this worksheet. So the answers from this worksheet come from the video, all right? So watch the video and fill in this worksheet. So pretty easy, just takes you a few minutes, all right? So that's part one. That's what you're going to do first. Capiche? Okay. Part one, watch the video and fill out that worksheet. Part two. So come down here and let's look at worksheet number 2. All right. So I'm going to blow this up a bit so we can focus in there. Let's zoom in. Okay. So this is worksheet number 2. So what you've got to do here is now that you watched the video, your question is, what are the variables that determine where a PIka will be found, right? So in the video, you learned about where the PIka likes to live, warm and cold, what the PIka likes to eat, how the PIka gets water to drink. So all those things you learned about in the video, right? In the little video you watched a second ago. So now that you've watched that, so what are some things that will determine where a PIka likes to live? Well, I like to think about this in terms of what determines where you want to live, right? I mean, you want to live probably pretty near to a grocery store, right? You probably want to live with a place that has running water. You probably want to live with a place that, I don't know, has a roof, right? So same thing with a PIka. A PIka likes to live certain places and you like to live certain places. So just write down what you think that is. So now that you've got some of these variables written down, maybe like temperature, location, elevation, kinds of food they like to eat, now you can form some hypotheses, right? Remember this hypotheses from when we did the case study about hand washing. We learned about making hypotheses. So here we go again. So we're going to look at these data right here. All right, so these are data that the case study provides you to give you information about the PIka. Now, here's your big hint for this project. Always graph years occupied on the x-axis and pick some of these other things to graph on the y-axis, okay? So years occupied on the x-axis, one of the others, pick 2 of them and graph them on the y-axis, okay? The site name means nothing because it doesn't mean anything to me. Does it mean anything to you? No, I don't think it even means anything to the PIka, right? And so what you want to do is pick 2 of these variables and look at them, right? And now we're going to come over here, we're going to make a hypothesis. What's a hypothesis? A hypothesis is a testable question, right? So your hypothesis might be something like, PIkas like to live where it's hot. Probably not. PIkas like to live where it's cold. They do like it cold-ish. PIkas like to live where there's lots of food. PIkas like to live where there's water. PIkas don't like to live where there's water. This is a hypothesis. Really, you're just going through these. PIkas like to live where it is high or low. PIkas like to live where it's wet or dry. PIkas like to live where there's food. PIkas like to live where the summer temperatures are whatever, right? So that's your hypothesis. And then you're going to graph, okay? So again, on the bottom, always graph years occupied. I mean, you don't have to, but this is my recommendation. And this is the y-axis. Pick one of the other variables and see what you get. All right? Same for this one. Pick another one. Pikas like to live in the summer where it's between, I don't know, 9 and 12 degrees centigrade. That might be something that might be a perfectly fine hypothesis that you could use, right? And then graph the data. Graph those data. And after you graph those data in these things I gave you, you then answer these questions. Was it conclusive in any way? Probably that depends on how well you graphed it. Did you prove or disprove your hypothesis? Again, it doesn't make any difference if your hypothesis was wrong, come to find out, or if it was right. It's not the question. It's, did you write a good hypothesis, and what did you find out from it, right? Now, let me show you what some of these graphs might look like, okay? So this is one of your other big hints for the day. And let me stop sharing this particular screen. Let's go back and share my desktop. So I have this graph that I made, so you should be able to see this now, where I took some of these data, right? Some of these, this is the data. By the way, I gave these to you in a spreadsheet, so if you look a little further down in this case study, you'll find these data in an Excel spreadsheet. I just took the data, I colored it so I could keep track of what graph was, but here we go, elevation, right? So let's look at elevation and years occupied. See, here's years occupied, and every one I made years occupied. And here's your years occupied graph, and this is elevation. So you see, this is how the data looks when you graph. And I put a trend line through it. So if you fool around a little bit with Excel, or if you know Excel at all, that's something you can do. So this is average summer temperature versus years occupied. This is average precipitation versus years occupied. This is food versus years occupied. And so by looking at that, you should be able to make some judgments about how well your hypothesis fit the data, or if it did, if it didn't, all right? Let's go back and share that screen again about the, you want to share the PIka case study. So here we are again. And okay. Okay, so now you just have to go through here, and you've got to, after you graph, answer these questions. Why did you find the results that you did for the graph? Why? What's your idea? What's your opinion about it? Why did you find the results you did for graph 2? If global temperatures continue to rise, how will pikas be affected in the summer? Well, now you got to think about, do pikas like it hot, or do pikas like it cold? And go back and look at those summer data, and hopefully maybe people in your group, some of you will graph one, some of you will graph the other. That would be helpful if you all shared the graphing functions. And say, how did you do? If global temperatures rise, what do you think is going to happen to the pika? And if you were a pika, how would you acclimate? How would you get used to living in these hotter summer temperatures? What could you do behaviorally? Like, would you dig a deeper hole? Would you climb a tree? Would you wave your little pika feet in the air and go, help me, right? What would you do? If global temperatures continue to rise, how will the pika be affected in the winter? Now, I'm going to give you a hint and say that pika will definitely be affected in the winter from climate change. Just think about all the things that can happen as the winters get a little warmer, and what might happen to the pika. And how do the pika stay warm in the winter? And what might happen to that if it gets warmer, right? So if you were a pika, how would you acclimate behaviorally or physiologically to deal with that issue in the winter, right? So how would you deal with it in the summer if it's hotter? And how would you deal with it in the winter if the winter is warmer? Or if the winter is different in some way because of climate change? What could you do behaviorally? what would you do? Dig a bigger hole, deeper hole, find a place with water. What are you gonna do? So the next question is that if you look at this diagram, right? You think about genetic variation in population. Now at this point, you probably want to go back to chapter 2, and we start to in there we're dealing with questions, these things we call the founder effect. You might look at some of the things about genetic change that we talked about, at least we talked about in the textbook in, I think it was pretty sure it's chapter 3. These things will all help you come up with a pretty interesting answer for that, right? What about genetic diversity? Would genetic diversity increase as the PIka go higher and higher up these mountains? I mean, I have an opinion about it, but what do you think? And if you analyze the data, do you think the pikas are a good indicator species of climate change? Think about that. And what do you normally think? What do you think is the destiny of the PIka? Do you think they're going to be able to adapt, or are they all going to die out? All right. So those are some questions. So that's the PIka case study. All right, and that's what it looks like. So when you're done answering all those questions, you just want to go ahead and open up your case study reflection, fill that in. Again, this is a group study. Everybody has got to put their initials to get credit. I want to see initials. If I don't see initials from your work on the case study, you will not get credit. Everybody has got to participate from now on. This is the data, by the way. This is the data I gave you in a Excel spreadsheet. This is what I use. I took these data and I modified them. I made my graphs, but that's all there for you to use if you want. So that's it. By the way, this is the rubric on I use to grade. Okay, so that is it, students. So if you have any questions about this, send me a message through Canvas. I'm happy to help. Again, this one you have a couple of weeks, but please don't delay because all these case studies are going to stack up near the end of the term. I want to give you lots of time to work on them, but also don't delay. Again, don't forget, you've got to be working on all your McGraw-Hill Connect assignments that you've got, all right? So again, everybody take care, and I will talk to you later.